My name is Anna Meneghel, and I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer at CyberArk. In this video, I'll help you get started with Workforce Password Management, CyberArk Password Manager solution. In the next few minutes, we'll discuss why Workforce Password Management, or WPM for short, what you need for getting started with it. We'll discuss best practices to consider and tips to test WPM. CyberArk has been a leader in privileged access management for several years now, assisting customers to secure their most critical credentials. But what about non-privileged credentials? It is probably not a surprise to you that users' credentials pose a serious security risk to the entire organization. Cyber criminals target weak credentials as they are the easiest way to get access to secure resources and information. Many users use simple, easy to remember, common or reusable passwords for applications they need to create passwords for, with no secure method for storing them. Talking about storing passwords, do you know how your employees are currently storing them? From what we hear from customers and prospects, users use a variety of creative methods to save their passwords, from spreadsheets, text files, OneNote, to browser password managers, and even personal password managers. None of the solutions were meant to be enterprise password managers. In order to solve this use case, provide all users and the organization a way to save their credentials in a safe and user-friendly way, CyberArk developed Workforce Password Management, or WPM for short. WPM is part of the CyberArk's Identity Security Platform. And if you purchased Privilege Cloud recently, you might have license of WPM. It is available in the Identity tab of the Identity Security Platform. If you purchased the standalone Privilege Cloud version, or if you have CyberArk Identity, WPM is available in the CyberArk Identity portal. To check if you have WPM license, reach out to your CyberArk sales team. So, now that we know why WPM, let's take a quick look at what WPM is. Workforce Password Management allows you to give your business users a secure way to create passwords, store them, and share them if needed and if they are allowed to, while giving administrators visibility and control. It's meant for business users who do not have access to CyberArk privileged solutions, or for IT personnel who would like to save website passwords or other type of non-privileged passwords in their users portal. WPM offers customers an enterprise password management solution. With secure access, the credentials are protected by strong authentication with MFA, or even passwordless authentication if you wish. Ability to allow users to share credentials on a safe way, and improved visibility, track user access activity, and get visibility into which applications users have accessed with out-of-the-box and customizable reports. Behind the scenes, these credentials are saved to the CyberArk WPM Cloud Vault, or for CyberArk self-hosted PAM customers, passwords can be securely stored in the self-hosted CyberArk Vault. The solution is architected in a way that does not require users to be connected to a VPN to retrieve stored credentials. All they need to do is authenticate to the CyberArk Identity portal, which can be protected with MFA, and click on the applications they want to access. The user experience is the same whether the passwords are saved in the cloud or in a self-hosted vault. And this video will help you get started with the first scenario. If you'd like to implement Workforce Password Management with integration to the self-hosted vault, please reach out to your CyberArk sales team. So, how do you get started? First, make sure you understand what WPM is all about. Check out the WPM demo video. See the link in the description below. What else will we need? Well, you need access to the CyberArk Identity tenant, could be the standalone version or part of the Identity Security Platform, and you need admin credentials. You also need to be able to download and install a browser extension, the CyberArk Identity browser extension, and it's available on supported browsers, which are Edge, Chrome, and Firefox. So check if your IT department manages the browser. You might need to have an exception for testing, and you can then have your IT department push the browser extension when you go into production. And optionally, you'll need the CyberArk Identity mobile app that is used for MFA and also to allow users to have access to their credentials from a mobile device. iOS and Android are supported. In the next few minutes, we'll go through the steps you need to follow to create a test user who is able to use WPM and to run some tests. We'll start by accessing the CyberArk Identity portal as administrator. We'll create a test user. We'll also add a role and add the chair credentials admin rights to that role, and we'll use that role to configure a policy for WPM. We'll allow land and catch, which is allowing the browser extension to prompt the user to save the passwords. We are going to enable secure items and enable adding the mobile application. Let's get started. In order to get started, you'll need to access the CyberArk Identity portal. The main administrator for the tenant would have received an email describing what services were enabled, what is the username to be used for the first login, what is the URL. That URL has a magic link that will allow that user to automatically sign in for the first time. It will also contain the tenant ID, and please note that this invitation is only valid for a few hours. If your invitation has expired, open a support ticket to get a new email with a valid magic link. So we are going to click on that link, and that magic link will log us in, but will first ask us to change the password. Enter your new credentials here. And you get access as a CyberArk Identity Security Platform. In order to go to the Identity Administrator, you can click in the link below, or you can use the waffle to switch to the Identity Portal or other applications that you have in your platform. Please note you might have more items there depending on your license. This is the user portal. This is the interface your users are going to be using when accessing the portal. On the left side, you can see applications, secure items, etc. Secure item is available when users have permissions to access it. In this case, we are going to click on the Identity Administrator, and this is the CyberArk Identity Administrator portal. The first time that you log in, you have the welcome wizard that you can use to do the first configurations, including personalizing the tenant, adding users, etc. We're going to skip this part at this moment. What you see is one of several dashboards which are available to give you a quick overview of the environment. We'll get started by configuring a WPM user. CyberArk Identity supports several different types of users, including Active Directory users, Azure Active Directory, CyberArk Cloud Directory users, which are users created directly in the Cloud Directory, Google Directory users, LDAP users, etc. If you need more information about the types of users, click Online Help at the bottom of the screen. That will take you to the User's Guide and Administrator Guide page where you can search for the item you're looking for information. Back to the Users portal, we're going to click Add User to create our WPM test user. We'll enter a login name, an email address, and a display name. For the password, we can generate one. In this case, we'll select manual and enter a password because we are creating a user for our own use. And because we are entering our own password, we are going to uncheck require password change at next login and uncheck email invite for user portal setup. If you were inviting a user, you should leave those checked. We'll enter a description for the user and a mobile number for SMS. We can also enter a start and end date. And notifications, we are going to select to send mobile notifications to our main user. This is a handy functionality that allows administrators to have more than one account. And we are done. Our user is created. Next, we go to rows and click Add Row. Here, we are going to give a name to the row. WPM test users in our case. We'll add a description, and before we can add a member, we need to save this row. Once the row is saved, we search for it, click on the name of the row to go back, and now we are ready to add members. We'll be adding that test account that we just created. In administrative rights, we need to add the shared credentials as a admin right. Only users with that admin right are able to share credentials. And in this case, we want that user to be able to share credentials. We can also assign applications to our role, but in this case, we are not going to be doing that. If you need more information about admin rights, you can click the link to the documentation. Now that we added rows, we are ready to go to policies. Click on policies on the left and then add policy set. We are going to be adding a new policy set just for WPM. You can call it something like WPM test policy, and you can add a description as well. And then under policy assignment, make sure you select the specified roles and assign this policy only to users that belong to that WPM test users role that you just created. Once you save it, it closes, so go back to that policy, go to application policies in user settings. That is where you start configuring WPM specific policies, things like allowing adding personal apps, allowing the user to customize the app that they added, allow copy the personal passwords, how long you want to clear the keyboard, and finally enable LAN and cache. Optionally, you can configure application restrictions. For more information, click the Learn More link there. Challenge users for user-added applications allows you to restrict where the users can come from when they access their WPM passwords and credentials. It also allows you to add MFA challenges before the user can have access to those applications, those passwords that they added. Access restrictions allows you to restrict what URL or domain the user can save. So if you add something here, a URL or a domain, they wouldn't be able to save a password for that URL or domain. Additionally, you can add user domains that allows you to prevent users from saving passwords with a specific user domain, like at gmail.com, to avoid users saving personal passwords, or even things like admin or root type of users. Another optional configuration is to allow users to enroll their mobile devices. Under the endpoint policies, device enrollment settings, make sure you permit device enrollment and that you enable invite-based enrollment device to make the enrollment process easier. Also, select No to permit non-compliance devices to enroll. That will avoid rooted or jailbroken devices to be enrolled, and select No to permit only corporate device enrollments. That's to allow BYOD devices as well. There are other configuration options available here that are not relevant for WPM, so we won't cover it in this video, but if you need more information, check out the documentation. Next, go to Common Settings, Mobile Settings, Restriction Settings, and track the available restrictions there. You can opt for not reporting the device location and opt to allow the users to unenroll the devices and not to collect device information. In security settings, you can select to require authentication to open the CyberArk mobile authentication app and what is the auto lock interval, and if you want to lock and exit. Select Yes to enable authentication and passcode on Apple Watch if you wish to do that, and to require number matching for mobile authentication, which is great to avoid MFA fatigue attacks. That concludes the mobile device settings. Now let's go to user security policies, user account settings. There are lots of configurations here that we are not going to be covering in this video. In this video, we'll focus on the WPM relevant ones. So some of them are the user portal customization, where you can hide certain tabs for the user on the portal, like hiding secure items, which I highly recommend you do not do. So if you just leave it the default, the users will be able to see secured items in their portal. You can also add MFA in front of the user shared apps. So this is adding a MFA challenge before a user can see a password or secure note that has been shared with them. And if you wish to do that, you can either use an existing authentication profile or create a new one by giving it a name and selecting the challenges that you want to have before the user can either see a password or copy a password. Note the challenge pass-through duration. That is how many minutes you don't want to challenge the user again if they need to do another MFA for that. So choose something like 5 or 10 minutes at least, because you want to avoid MFA fatigue for the user. Once you're done, click OK. Finally, transfer of ownership of shared applications. I really like this feature. Without transfer of ownership, when a user is removed from CyberArk identity because the user leaves the organization, for instance, all his passwords and secure items are also removed. So if the user has shared some of those credentials, they are all lost. To avoid this, administrators can enable this feature and select who those shared credentials, and only the shared credentials are going to automatically be transferred to. It could be a manager or it could be a specific user. This will make so that when a user leaves the organization and is deleted, those credentials that have been shared are safe. And the users that have access to those credentials will continue to have access to those credentials. I'm not going to enable transfer of ownership, but feel free to enable and test it. And we are done. You made it. You set up the policies for WPM. You can review them in the summary part section of the policy. And when you are done, we can start testing. Testing time. My favorite way of testing is creating multiple browser profiles. That allows me to be logged in as administrator in one profile and at the same time log in and log out as many times as I need as a regular user in another profile. And that doesn't conflict one login, and I don't need to use incognito mode. Another tip is to disable the browser's password manager to prevent the browser from prompting the user to save the password, and also preventing the auto sign-in by the browser. This can be enforced by IT using the browser management capabilities. In order to test, let's log in with the user we created. So let's quickly check if the user can add apps. This is the app catalog, and it's one way that the users can add applications. I'm going to look for Adobe here, just as an example of an application. And I'm going to select my Adobe since it's the one that I have the credentials that I can use with test. I click Add, and then I click Close, and the application opens up. You can add your notes, etc., but we are not going to go on this. We are going to just add a username and then copy the password, enter the password there that I already have, and from here I can save this application. If I need to go back, I can just click that app settings there to have access to the application once again. If I try to launch the application the first time, it might not work and you might get this message. This message tells you that you need to install the browser extension. If you have installed the browser extension beforehand, either manually or the IT pushed through Manage Browser, that is done. But if not, you need to click there to download the browser extension. I'm using Chrome, so I'm going to click on Add to Chrome and Add Extension. And then a tip is to go into the browser extension icon over here and then click on the CyberArk Identity Browser extension to pin it. So now it's pinned and I can see it all the time. So I'll go back to my portal here. I don't need this actually. I'll go back, and if I try to launch again, it's going to fail again because I'm not signed in. So what you have to do is just refresh the browser and it's going to prompt you to sign in. Now I'm signing in. You can see that it changed color. And if you click on the browser extension, you see your applications as well. So you can either launch the application from the user portal or you can launch the application from the browser extension. And the browser extension automatically fill in the username and the password and logs the user in. So that's the convenience of using the browser extension to automatically populate the login. I'm going to go ahead and sign out from this website. Now let's say you have another application that you usually work with, such as, for example, UPS. The first time that you log into that application, you're going to enter the username and password, and once you click login, the browser extension is going to prompt you to capture that username and password. So you can just add it here so you have the right name, and I can then click yes. And once I click yes, if I go back to my user portal, the application is there. If I go to my browser extension, the application is there as well. Let's just take one more look. So we check that we can add apps, and we check that it's working through adding through the catalog and adding to Lending Catch. Now let's see if we can share applications. We can click add, we can start typing the username, and then we check the username and click add. By default, the application is shared, but the user is not able to see the password. The user is only able to launch the password, and the browser extension will auto-populate. You can change this and allow the user to view the password or even edit the password. And you can also give it a start date and an end date. Imagine we only want to share the password during the next week while you're on vacation. You can do that. And you click save. So now, if we don't get any errors, we know the user is able to add an app, launch an app, share an app. Next, we'll just check if secure items is available, and the user can add a secure items, and it's here, and they can also share that secure items. For more information on how to use WPM, please see one of the demo videos. Congratulations, you've done a lot today. You accessed the identity portal and you logged in as an administrator. You created a test user. You added a role for the WPM users. You gave it permission to share credentials through admin rights. You configured a policy for WPM to allow lend and catch. You also enabled secured items, and you might have enabled the mobile app. And finally, you tested the user experience. Lots of work. Before you go, some best practices for your consideration. Protect the access to the CyberArk Identity portal using multi-factor authentication. Consider MFA frequency that you're going to be enforcing to your users. And if you want to prevent capture of certain URLs or user domains, you can do that. You can also restrict access to those passwords from certain areas. For example, restrict access from an unmanaged device or from IP addresses that do not belong to your organization. I hope this gives us an idea of how powerful Workforce Password Manager is and how you can use to enhance your security posture. Here are some links for additional resources if you need, and I hope this video was useful. Thank you for your time.